The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems using their legendary interrogation techniques. Their torture chambers had broken the will of warrior kings, made generals weep like children, and reduced entire species to submission. But when they strapped Marcus Kane to their most advanced pain machine and cranked it to maximum power, the humans started laughing. And that laugh? That laugh broke something far more valuable than bones. It broke their entire understanding of what was possible. By the time Marcus asked for a bathroom break during his own torture session, 7 alien spines had snapped from pure psychological trauma. And the most feared military facility in the galaxy was evacuating in terror. This is the story of how one human turned a torture chamber into a comedy show and accidentally created the most viral spa review in galactic history. Commander Vorthak adjusted his ceremonial combat spines with the smugness of someone who had never met a human before. Today was going to be easy. Today was going to be fun. Today he was going to break the infamous Marcus Kane, the so-called terror of the Outer Rim, who had somehow managed to destroy 3 Zephyrian battlecruisers with nothing but a cargo hauler and what the reports described as excessive creativity. "Sir, the prisoner has arrived," announced technician Blixnor, his voice trembling with barely contained excitement. The little green-skinned torture specialist had been preparing for this moment for weeks, polishing his pain amplifiers and sharpening his neural probes until they gleamed under the harsh chamber lights. Vorthak's 4 eyes rolled in perfect synchronization. "Bring him in, Blixnor. Let us see what all the fuss is about regarding these humans." The blast doors hissed open, and in walked Marcus Kane. Vorthak blinked, then blinked again, then wondered if someone had played a practical joke on him. The human stood barely 6 feet tall, covered in what appeared to be pale pink skin instead of proper scales or chitin. No natural armor plating, no visible weapons ports, no defensive spines or acid glands. The creature looked like it would fall apart if someone sneezed on it too hard. "This is your feared Deathworlder?" Vorthak asked, his voice dripping with disappointment. "This soft, squishy thing that looks like it was assembled by a committee of blind engineers?" Marcus Kane smiled. It was not a pleasant expression on human features, Vorthak noted. Something about the way those white bone fragments showed through the lip tissue seemed wrong. "The intelligence reports state that humans are from a Class 12 death planet." Blixnor read from his datapad, sounding increasingly uncertain. "Gravity 3 times standard, poisonous atmosphere, predatory ecosystem, extreme weather patterns." And yet, Vorthak interrupted, circling the human like a predator sizing up prey. "Here stands this pathetic specimen. No claws, no fangs worth mentioning, no protective exoskeleton. I have seen more intimidating creatures in my breakfast bowl." The torture chamber hummed to life around them, energy fields crackling, neural disruptors warming up, pain amplifiers calibrating themselves to human nerve patterns. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. "Guard Captain Thorzel," Vorthak called out, "please ensure our guest is properly secured. I estimate this interrogation will last approximately." He paused for dramatic effect, studying the human's unremarkable frame. "Oh, perhaps 30 seconds. Maybe a full minute if he proves surprisingly stubborn." Marcus Kane chuckled softly, a sound that somehow made Vorthak's spines itch uncomfortably. "Commander," the human said pleasantly, "you might want to call in some backup." Vorthak laughed. His first mistake of many to come. "Begin with the neural disruptor," Vorthak commanded, settling into his observation chair with the satisfaction of someone about to watch their favorite holovid. "Level 3 should suffice for initial softening." Blixnor activated the device with ceremonial flourish. The neural disruptor hummed to life, sending waves of pure agony directly into Marcus Kane's nervous system. The kind of pain that had reduced Zephyrian warriors to blubbering puddles within seconds. The kind of torture that made grown Thoraxians beg for their mothers. Marcus Kane tilted his head thoughtfully, as if listening to distant music. "Huh," the human said conversationally, "that tickles." Vorthak's left eye stalk twitched, increased to level 7. The energy output doubled, tripled. The air itself seemed to vibrate with concentrated suffering. Several monitoring devices began smoking from the overload. Marcus Kane started laughing. Not screaming, not begging, laughing. A deep, genuine belly laugh that echoed off the chamber walls like some demented symphony. The human's face had turned an interesting shade of red, tears streaming down his cheeks, but apparently from amusement rather than agony. "Oh, that is good," Marcus gasped between chuckles. "Reminds me of this massage chair I had back on Earth. Same kind of tingly sensation, just with more pizzazz." Guard Captain Thorzel, a veteran of 17 campaigns and survivor of the Siege of Mortaxis Prime, took one look at the laughing human and promptly fainted. His massive frame hit the deck with a thunderous crash that shook the entire chamber. The impact was so sudden, so unexpected, that Vorthak's ceremonial spine number 4 snapped clean in half from the shock. "What?" Vorthak shrieked, clutching his broken spine while staring at his unconscious guard captain. "Thorzel, get up! He is just a soft pink meat creature. Level 10. Blixnor squeaked, his hands dancing across the control panel in panic. Maximum output. This should liquefy his internal organs. The neural disruptor screamed to life at full power. The chamber lights dimmed. Emergency cooling systems kicked in. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm began wailing as the facility's power grid struggled to handle the energy drain. Marcus Kane stopped laughing just long enough to clear his throat politely. "Excuse me," he said, raising one hand like a student asking a question. "Is this supposed to hurt? Because I have to tell you, my dentist uses equipment that is way more uncomfortable than this thing." So Vorthak's remaining spines began to quiver involuntarily. Your dentist?" "Oh yeah, Doc Harrison. Terrible bedside manner, hands like industrial clamps, and he never uses enough Novocaine. Now that guy knows how to cause some real discomfort." Marcus paused thoughtfully. "You know, if you are looking to upgrade your torture techniques, I could give you his contact information." The neural disruptor suddenly sparked, overloaded, and died with a pathetic whimper. Vorthak stared at the smoking remains of his most advanced torture device, then at his unconscious guard captain, then at the human who was now examining his restraints with the casual interest of someone browsing a hardware store. "This is impossible," Vorthak muttered, his voice cracking slightly. "You are supposed to be screaming by now. You are supposed to be broken. You are supposed to be begging for mercy." Marcus Kane smiled that disturbing human smile again. "Commander, we have not even gotten to the fun part yet." Somewhere in the back of his mind, Vorthak began to suspect that he might have made a serious miscalculation. "Well, since we seem to have a technical malfunction," Marcus said cheerfully, "mind if we chat while your technician fixes that smoking pile of scrap metal? I have been cooped up in that transport cell for 3 cycles, and honestly, I am dying for some decent conversation." Vorthak's second spine cracked audibly under the stress. "Chat? The prisoner wanted to chat? During his own interrogation? Bring in the bone melters," Vorthak shouted, his voice reaching a pitch that shattered 2 light fixtures. "The acid baths. The cerebral extractors. All of them." Blixnor scurried around the chamber like a caffeinated rodent, wheeling in device after device. The bone melter hummed ominously. The acid bath bubbled with anticipation. The cerebral extractor extended its needle-tipped appendages with surgical precision. "Oh, nice setup," Marcus observed, craning his neck to get a better look. "Very retro. Kind of reminds me of my grandfather's workshop, except he used his tools to fix things instead of break them." He paused thoughtfully. Though, to be fair, Grandpa Joe could be pretty creative with a blowtorch when he was angry. The bone melter activated, sending waves of molecular disruption through Marcus's skeletal structure. The human's bones should have turned to liquid. Instead, Marcus flexed his fingers experimentally. He said. "That is actually kind of nice, like a deep tissue massage, but from the inside. You know what would make this better, though?" "What?" Blixnor asked automatically, then immediately regretted opening his mouth. "Heat. This thing is working at maybe 60% efficiency because you are not pre-warming the target area. Back home, we always heat the metal before we work it. Basic metallurgy, really. Vorthak's third spine snapped from pure, concentrated frustration. He is giving us torture advice, the commander whispered to himself in horror. The prisoner is critiquing our professional techniques. Oh, and another thing, Marcus continued, apparently just getting warmed up. Your restraint system has some serious design flaws. See, you have got these metal clamps here, but they are positioned at the wrong joints. You want to immobilize the major muscle groups, not just the extremities. Otherwise, your subject can still generate leverage, and trust me, leverage is everything. To demonstrate, Marcus shifted slightly in his bonds. The supposedly unbreakable restraints groaned ominously. Also, the human added conversationally, your lighting is all wrong. You have got these harsh overhead floods that create shadows in all the wrong places. Very unprofessional. You want even illumination for maximum psychological impact. Maybe some colored gels? Red is classic. But purple can be really unsettling if you do it right. Blixnor had stopped operating the torture devices altogether and was now frantically taking notes on his datapad. Stop that. Vorthak shrieked. Stop taking advice from the prisoner. But sir, Blixnor protested, he is making some excellent points about our operational procedures. The acid bath kicked in, spraying Marcus with enough concentrated corrosive to dissolve a battle tank. The human blinked a few times as the acid ran down his face, then licked his lips thoughtfully. Citrusy, he announced, with just a hint of sulfur. Very nice bouquet. Is this locally sourced, or do you import it? Because if you are making this in-house, you have got some serious chemistry skills. Vorthak's fourth spine gave up entirely and snapped like a dry twig. You know what? Marcus continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that his skin should have been melting off his bones. I have got to compliment you on the interior decorating. This whole ominous torture chamber aesthetic really works. The dark metal, the dramatic lighting. The foreboding architecture, very atmospheric. Very professional. Really sets the mood for serious interrogation work. That was it. That was the breaking point. The moment when a compliment about interior design, delivered by a prisoner who was literally bathing in acid, finally pushed Vorthak's sanity past its structural limits. The commander began laughing. Not the confident laugh from earlier, but the high-pitched, slightly unhinged giggle of someone whose worldview had just collapsed into smoking rubble. The emergency klaxons began wailing throughout the facility. Medical teams rushed in to treat Vorthak's broken spines. Security personnel backed away from the torture chamber like it contained a plague outbreak. Through it all, Marcus Kane continued his casual critique of alien interrogation techniques, apparently having the time of his life. Oh, and one more thing, the human said pleasantly. You might want to check the structural integrity of your restraint mounts. I think they are starting to come loose. The cerebral extractor whirred to life, extending its primary drilling appendage toward Marcus's skull with mechanical precision. This was it, Vorthak thought desperately. This had to work. The cerebral extractor could bore through 6 inches of reinforced battle armor. Surely it could handle one soft human skull. The drill made contact and immediately began smoking. Excuse me, Marcus said politely, raising his hand again. Sorry to interrupt, but could we possibly take a quick break? I really need to use the bathroom. The drill bit, forged from the hardest metals in the galaxy, snapped clean off and clattered to the floor. Vorthak's fifth spine fractured with a sound like breaking crystal. Bathroom. The commander repeated slowly, his voice hollow with disbelief. You want a bathroom break? During your own torture session? Well, yeah, Marcus replied reasonably. I have been holding it since you guys picked me up, and that acid bath really got things moving, if you know what I mean. Plus, basic human biology requires regular waste elimination. It is not really optional. Sir, whispered Technician Blixnor, his voice trembling. What do we do? The prisoner is requesting facilities. Vorthak stared at his torture specialist with the expression of someone whose grip on reality had become purely theoretical. Facilities. He wants facilities. In the middle of his interrogation. Look, Marcus said helpfully, I get that this is probably not covered in your standard operating procedures, but trust me, nobody wants to deal with the alternative. Human waste products can be pretty unpleasant, and this chamber does not seem to have great ventilation. The Restraints gave another ominous groan as Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Just point me toward the nearest facilities. I will take care of business, and then we can get back to whatever this is supposed to be, the human continued. I promise I will not try to escape or anything. Scout's honor. Scout's honor? Blixnor asked weakly. It is a human thing. Basically means I am giving you my word as a former wilderness survival expert who knows 17 different ways to start a fire using only pocket lint and determination. That information hung in the air like a toxic cloud. 17 ways, Vorthak muttered, using pocket lint. Oh, that is nothing, Marcus said cheerfully. You should see what I can do with a paperclip and some determination. Speaking of which, is anyone going to address these restraints? Because they are getting pretty loose, and I am starting to get cold. As if to demonstrate, Marcus began doing push-ups, while still technically restrained. The metal clamps groaned and sparked as the human's surprisingly dense muscle mass strained against them with each repetition. 1, Marcus counted. 2, 3. Sorry about this, but I need to keep my core temperature up. Human thermoregulation is pretty inefficient compared to you guys. 4, 5, 6. Vorthak watched in horrified fascination as his supposedly unbreakable restraint system bent and twisted under the casual exercise routine of a creature that looked like it should collapse under its own body weight. How, the commander whispered, how are you doing that? Doing what? Marcus asked, pausing at push-up number 23. Oh, the push-ups? Basic calisthenics. We learned this stuff in elementary school. You want to try some? Great for building upper body strength. The restraints, Vorthak croaked. Those restraints are rated for Class 15 combat specimens. Yeah, they are not bad, Marcus agreed, resuming his workout. Decent tensile strength, good metallurgy, but whoever designed them clearly never dealt with human muscle density. See, we evolved on a high-gravity world, so our musculature is way more compact than it looks. 27. 28. Somewhere around push-up number 35, Marcus began humming. It started as a low, melodic tune that seemed harmless enough. Then the human began adding harmony to his own humming, creating complex musical patterns that should have been impossible for a single voice box to produce. What is that sound? Blixnor asked, his scales turning pale green with fear. Oh, just an old Earth song, Marcus replied between push-ups. My mom used to sing it to me when I was little. It goes like this. He launched into a full vocal performance of what sounded like a human war chant mixed with a lullaby. The melody was hauntingly beautiful and absolutely terrifying at the same time. It spoke of vast skies and endless plains, of creatures that hunted in packs and never gave up, of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubborn refusal to die. Vorthak's thick spine shattered like glass. Code red. The commander screamed into his communicator, his voice breaking with panic. Code red. All units to torture chamber 7. Medical teams to my location immediately. And somebody contact Admiral Kriksta. Tell her we have a situation. What kind of situation, sir? Came the reply from Central Command. Vorthak looked at Marcus Kane, who was now on push-up number 67 while humming what sounded like a human mating song about conquering impossible odds through the power of friendship and explosive ordnance. The worst kind, Vorthak whispered. Send everything. The emergency response teams arrived in full combat gear, weapons drawn, expecting to find their commander under attack by some previously unknown superweapon. Instead, they found Vorthak huddled in the corner, muttering incoherently about human thermoregulation and pocket lint, while Marcus Kane continued his exercise routine with the dedication of a professional athlete. Push-up number 89, Marcus announced cheerfully. 90. Hey, what time is it anyway? Because I am starting to get pretty hungry, and I was wondering if you guys do lunch around here. Vorthak's seventh and final ceremonial spine exploded. Not cracked, not fractured, exploded into 17 separate pieces that scattered across the chamber floor like shrapnel from a grenade. The sound was so loud it triggered the facility's combat alert system, which began broadcasting warnings about potential weapon discharge in Sector 7. Lunch. Vorthak shrieked, his voice reaching frequencies that made several aliens clutch their auditory organs in pain. He wants lunch. The Deathworlder wants to know about our meal schedule. The emergency response team leader, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Quillnex, took one look at his spineless commander and immediately activated the facility-wide evacuation protocol. All personnel evacuate Sector 7 immediately. Quillnex barked into his communicator. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. What about the prisoner? Someone asked. Quillnex glanced at Marcus, who had finished his push-ups and was now examining the restraint mechanism with the focused attention of a professional engineer. Leave him, Quillnex decided. Whatever he is, we are not equipped to handle it. Actually, Marcus said conversationally, if anyone is interested, these restraints have a pretty obvious design flaw. He reached into what appeared to be empty air and somehow produced a small metal object. See, the locking mechanism relies on this simple pin and tumbler system, and if you know what you are doing. The restraints clicked open with a sound like breaking bones. Marcus Kane stood up, stretched casually, and looked around the now abandoned torture chamber with the mild disappointment of a customer who had received subpar service at a restaurant. Ha, he said. Paperclip trick works on alien technology too. Good to know. Alarms were wailing throughout the facility. Emergency lighting bathed everything in hellish red. Automated systems announced evacuation procedures in 17 different languages. Through it all, Marcus walked calmly toward the exit, pausing only to pick up his torn shirt from the floor. You know. He called out to the fleeing aliens, I have stayed in some pretty questionable places during my travels, but this has got to be the worst hospitality I have ever experienced. No room service, no entertainment, terrible customer service, and do not even get me started on the bathroom situation. Vorthak, now completely spineless and babbling about human physiology, was being carried out on a medical stretcher. As Marcus passed by, the broken commander grabbed his arm with desperate strength. How? Vorthak wheezed. How are you possible? Marcus considered the question seriously. Well, my planet tried to kill me every single day for 32 years, he explained patiently. Poisonous atmosphere, crushing gravity, weather systems that could level cities, predators that hunted in packs, diseases that could melt your internal organs, natural disasters that made volcanic eruptions look like gentle spring rain. By the time I left Earth, your little torture chamber here felt like a relaxing day at the spa. He patted Vorthak gently on what remained of the alien's shoulder. Thanks for the workout, though. I really needed to stretch my legs after that long trip. The facility's main blast doors were already sealing as Marcus approached them. Without breaking stride, he examined the control panel, made a few adjustments with his paperclip, and walked through as the massive doors obediently opened for him. Behind him, the most advanced interrogation facility in the Zephyrian Empire continued its emergency shutdown, its staff fleeing in terror from the soft pink creature who had just strolled out like he owned the place. 1 star, Marcus called back over his shoulder. I would not recommend to friends. And with that devastating review, he disappeared into the corridors, leaving behind a facility full of broken aliens and shattered assumptions about what it meant to be human. 3 standard cycles later, the Zephyrian High Command convened an emergency session in their most secure conference chamber. Admiral Krixta, Supreme Commander of the Outer Rim Fleet, sat at the head of the table with the expression of someone who had just received news that physics had stopped working. Report, she commanded grimly. Former Commander Vorthak, now stripped of rank and confined to a medical support chair due to his complete lack of spines, began his testimony with the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had seen things that mortal minds were not meant to process. "The human," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "the human asked for bathroom privileges during active interrogation. Then he complimented our interior decorating, while bathing in acid." The assembled officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Continue," Admiral Kriksta ordered. "He critiqued our torture techniques," Vorthak continued, his eye stalks twitching spasmodically. "Gave us suggestions for improvement, professional advice, while we were actively trying to kill him. Then he did push-ups. 89 push-ups in unbreakable restraints, while humming songs about friendship and explosive ordnance." General Flixmore, veteran of the Proxima campaign, raised a tentacle. "Sir, with respect, how exactly did your spines?" He asked about lunch. Vorthak screamed suddenly, causing half the room to flinch. The Deathworlder wanted to know our meal schedule. What kind of creature asks about lunch while being tortured to death? Admiral Kriksta rubbed her primary forehead with both hands. "And the escape?" "Paperclip," Vorthak muttered. "He used a paperclip, picked the locks like they were children's toys, walked out the front door like he was leaving a hotel, left us a review." "A review?" Vorthak's aide stepped forward nervously. "Sir, the human posted his experience on the Galactic travel network. 5,000 views in the first hour." Admiral Kriksta's expression suggested she was rapidly approaching her own spine-breaking threshold. "What did he say?" Quote, "Had a lovely time at the Zephyrian Enhanced Interrogation Spa. Staff was very attentive, though the service was a bit aggressive for my taste. Facilities were clean and well-maintained. The neural disruptor massage was particularly invigorating, though I would recommend they upgrade to newer models. The acid bath had excellent mineral content, very refreshing for the skin. Overall, a unique experience. Though I would suggest they work on their customer service training. 3 out of 5 stars. Would consider returning if they add a proper bathroom and improve their lunch menu." End quote. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of General Flixmore's head hitting the conference table. "He gave us 3 stars, Admiral Kriksta said slowly, "for torturing him." "The review has gone viral, sir," the aide continued helpfully. 17 different species are now booking visits to experience authentic Zephyrian hospitality. Tourism is up 400%. Admiral Kriksta stood slowly, her full military bearing barely containing the existential horror of the situation. "Effective immediately. All Zephyrian military forces are to implement Protocol 77 Alpha." "Sir?" "Where?" "Never, under any circumstances, for any reason, no matter the strategic value or tactical advantage, are we to capture, detain, interrogate, or otherwise inconvenience any member of the human species." She paused dramatically. "Ever. What if they attack us first? Run away. What if they threaten our homeworld? Run away faster." And thus the Zephyrian Empire learned the most important lesson in galactic diplomacy. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones who smile while you try to break them. Then leave positive reviews about the experience.